This map had been drawn in 1513 by a Turkish admiral, Admiral Piri Reis.
We're talking about maps that were drawn roughly between the 1300s and the 1700s, called Piri Reis in the year 1513.
Imagine holding a map drawn in 1513 that shows coastlines explorers hadn't even discovered yet.
The strange thing about this map is it shows features of the Earth that nobody in 1513 should have been able to know.
Sounds impossible, right? Yet that's exactly what the Piri Reis map has been puzzling historians for nearly a century. This ancient Turkish naval chart depicts South American coastlines with stunning accuracy and features that sparked wild theories about everything from ancient civilizations to lost knowledge. For decades, scholars argued, debated, and theorized about its secrets. But in 2025, something changed. Artificial intelligence cracked the code that humans couldn't solve alone, revealing truths that rewrite our understanding of Renaissance cartography and the knowledge that flowed through ancient hands. But before we dive into what AI discovered, you need to understand what makes this map so extraordinary in the first place. The story begins not in 1513, but over 400 years later, hidden away in a dusty palace archive where no one expected to find anything remarkable at all. The year was 1929. While workers renovated Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, they stumbled upon something extraordinary tucked away in the imperial archives. A fragment of an old map, drawn on gazelle skin, featuring coastlines and islands rendered in the distinctive style of 16th century Ottoman cartography. The man who created it? An Ottoman admiral and skilled cartographer named Piri Reis, who had meticulously signed and dated his work. Piri Reis wasn't just any sailor. He was a respected naval officer in the Ottoman Empire, a veteran of numerous sea battles, and an accomplished mapmaker who'd spent years compiling geographical knowledge from every source he could find. In 1513, he created this map using what he claimed were over 20 different source maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. The fragment that survived shows roughly 1/3 of the original map, depicting the Atlantic Ocean, the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and a mysterious southern landmass that would spark controversy for generations. What made historians sit up and take notice wasn't just the map's age or artistry, it was the precision. The South American coastline appeared remarkably accurate for a map created just 21 years after Columbus first reached the Americas. The Amazon River Delta was there. The Caribbean islands were positioned with surprising correctness. And then there were those cryptic notations Piri Reis had written across the map, explaining his sources and methods, mentioning Christopher Columbus, and claiming access to ancient maps that most scholars believed were long lost. The impossible coastlines. Let's talk about what should have been impossible. When cartographers first examined the Piri Reis map in detail, they noticed something that made them question everything they thought they knew about 16th century exploration. The eastern coast of South America wasn't just roughly sketched, it was accurate. We're talking about coastal features, river mouths, and island positions that aligned surprisingly well with modern maps. But here's where things get really interesting. In 1513, most of South America's coast remained unexplored by Europeans. Portuguese navigators had charted some sections, sure, but comprehensive mapping wouldn't happen for decades. Yet Piri Reis somehow depicted these coastlines with a level of detail that suggested either access to unknown Portuguese charts or something even more mysterious. The Amazon River Delta appeared recognizable. The coastline's general shape matched reality far better than it had any right to. Then there's the southern portion of the map, and this is where controversy explodes. The map shows a landmass extending southward from South America, featuring mountains and a detailed coastline. Some researchers looked at this and saw Antarctica. Wait, Antarctica? The frozen continent that wouldn't be officially discovered until 1820? That's the claim that sent ripples through both mainstream academia and fringe theory circles. Could this southern landmass represent Antarctica as it appeared before ice covered it thousands of years ago? The details seemed too specific to dismiss entirely. Mountains were marked, bays and inlets were drawn. If you rotated and adjusted certain projections, some researchers argued, the features aligned with the actual subglacial coastline of Antarctica, hidden beneath miles of ice. Others pointed out additional mysteries, longitude calculations that seemed too advanced for the era, distance measurements that suggested knowledge of Earth's circumference with remarkable precision, and geographical features that European explorers simply hadn't reached yet. Decades of theories and arguments. The academic establishment had their explanations, and they were considerably less dramatic than ancient lost civilizations. Mainstream scholars pointed to Piri Reis's own notes on the map. He explicitly stated he'd compiled it from approximately 20 source maps, including charts captured from Spanish sailors and potentially Portuguese navigational documents. This made perfect sense. The Ottomans were a naval power with extensive intelligence networks. They'd have access to the latest European discoveries through trade, diplomacy, and, let's be honest, piracy. As for the accuracy, scholars argued it was partly luck, partly skill, and partly exaggerated by modern observers wanting to see mysteries where none existed. They pointed out that if you cherry-pick which features to compare and allow for reasonable interpretation of ambiguous drawings, almost any ancient map can appear surprisingly accurate. The longitude calculations that seemed so impressive, probably coincidental, they said, or the result of practical sailing experience rather than advanced mathematical knowledge. But then you had the alternative theorists, and they weren't buying the conventional explanations. These researchers, some credentialed academics and others passionate amateurs, believed the map represented evidence of something far more profound. Perhaps an advanced ancient civilization had mapped the world thousands of years ago, and fragments of their knowledge survived in maps that were copied and recopied through generations. Maybe the legendary Library of Alexandria had contained geographical texts from prehistoric seafarers, and some of those documents survived in obscure archives. The Antarctica theory became particularly popular in certain circles. Proponents argued that the southern coastline couldn't be explained away as speculation or error. They claimed it matched the actual Antarctic coastline beneath the ice, which wasn't mapped by modern science until the 1950s, using seismic surveys. How could a 16th century map show this unless its sources dated back 10,000 years or more before glaciation covered the continent? Enter artificial intelligence. Fast forward to 2025, and the technology finally exists to approach the Piri Reis map in ways previous generations could only dream about. Artificial intelligence and machine learning have revolutionized how we analyze historical documents, and ancient maps have become a particularly exciting frontier. These aren't your typical AI applications. We're talking about sophisticated neural networks trained specifically on cartographic analysis, capable of recognizing patterns, projections, and geographical relationships that would take human researchers lifetimes to process. The AI systems used to analyze the Piri Reis map employ something called deep learning algorithms, which essentially means they can learn from vast data sets without being explicitly programmed for every scenario. Researchers fed these systems thousands of historical maps, modern satellite imagery, geographical databases, and information about various map projection methods used throughout history. The AI learned to recognize how different cartographers represented coastlines, how projection systems distort geographical features, and how accuracy varies based on technological limitations of different eras. But the real breakthrough came from combining multiple AI approaches simultaneously. Computer vision algorithms examined the actual visual features of the map with microscopic precision, measuring angles, distances, and proportional relationships between geographical elements. Natural language processing analyzed the Turkish and Arabic notations Piri Reis wrote on the map, comparing them against vast databases of historical texts and other period documents. Geographic information systems integrated with AI correlated the map's features with both modern geographical data and known historical cartographic sources. The researchers also employed something called Bayesian analysis, which allows AI to calculate probabilities and update its conclusions as new data emerges. Instead of making binary judgments about whether features matched or didn't match known geography, the AI could assess likelihood across spectrums, accounting for the inevitable distortions in hand-drawn maps and the limitations of 16th century navigational tools. This probabilistic approach meant the AI could identify what was genuinely anomalous versus what was simply the expected variance in pre-modern cartography. What the AI actually found. The results were revelatory, though perhaps not in the ways sensationalist theories had predicted. The AI's first major finding concerned the map's coordinate system and projection method. Through exhaustive analysis, the algorithms determined that Piri Reis had used a hybrid projection system, combining elements of Portolan chart traditions with newer techniques emerging from Spanish and Portuguese navigation. This wasn't a single coherent mathematical projection, but rather a compilation where different sections used different reference points and scaling methods. This discovery immediately explained many of the map's apparent anomalies. The AI found that when you account for these varying projection methods and adjust for them mathematically, the South American coastline's accuracy becomes far less mysterious. Piri Reis was working from multiple source maps, each using different projection conventions, and he'd compiled them without fully harmonizing their mathematical foundations. The result looked impressively accurate in some areas because those sections happened to use projection methods that minimized distortion for those particular coastlines. The longitude calculations that had seemed so impossibly precise. The AI's analysis revealed they were actually far less accurate than previous researchers had claimed. Earlier analysts had, perhaps unconsciously, adjusted their interpretations to make the map seem more accurate than it genuinely was. When the AI measured positions without human bias, using the map's own internal reference systems, the coordinates showed exactly the kind of errors you'd expect from 16th century dead reckoning navigation combined with educated guesses. But here's what was genuinely impressive. The AI identified specific geographical features that definitively matched known Portuguese exploration data from 1500 to 1512. The algorithms traced artistic similarities, notation styles, and specific coastal features to documented Portuguese charts, some of which still survive in archives. This proved that Piri Reis absolutely had access to cutting-edge Portuguese intelligence, probably through captured documents or perhaps through espionage networks. The Ottomans were serious about gathering geographical intelligence, and the AI's findings showed just how effective their information gathering was. The source map's mystery solved. Perhaps the AI's most historically significant contribution was tracing the lineage of Piri Reis's source materials with unprecedented precision. Remember how the admiral claimed he'd used over 20 different maps to create his masterwork? The AI didn't just take his word for it, it proved it. By analyzing stylistic elements, notation patterns, and geographical emphasis, the algorithms identified distinct cartographic traditions within different sections of the map. The AI detected clear influences from Catalan-Portolan charts, which were the gold standard of Mediterranean navigation in the medieval period. These charts had their own distinctive way of representing coastlines, marking compass roses, and noting navigational hazards. The algorithms found these patterns in specific sections of the Piri Reis map, particularly around the African coastline and Mediterranean features. This confirmed that Piri Reis had indeed incorporated medieval European cartographic knowledge. More remarkably, the AI identified stylistic elements consistent with Arabic and Islamic cartographic traditions, which approached map-making quite differently from European methods. Islamic maps often incorporated mathematical principles derived from astronomy and emphasized different geographical features based on trade routes and pilgrimage paths. The algorithms detected these influences in how certain measurements were recorded and how particular landmarks were emphasized over others. The analysis also confirmed Piri Reis's claim about using Colombian sources. The AI found specific geographical interpretations and coastal features that matched documented charts from Columbus's voyages, including distinctive errors that Columbus himself had made in calculating Caribbean island positions. These weren't just vague similarities, they were precise matches that could only come from direct access to Columbus-era Spanish cartography. This revelation underscored just how sophisticated Ottoman intelligence operations were. The Antarctic question answered. Now for the moment you've been waiting for. What about that mysterious southern landmass? The feature that launched 1,000 theories about pre-ice Antarctica and ancient advanced civilizations. The AI's analysis was definitive, and while it might disappoint alternative theory enthusiasts, the truth is actually more interesting than fiction. That southern coastline isn't Antarctica at all. The algorithms determined, with high statistical confidence, that the southern landmass represents a combination of South America's actual southern regions, extended and distorted through cartographic speculation. In the early 16th century, no one knew how far south the American continents extended. Cartographers often drew speculative coastlines based on limited data, theoretical geography, and assumptions about continental symmetry. The AI found that the features some researchers claimed matched Antarctica actually matched the Patagonian coast and Tierra del Fuego, just drawn at an incorrect scale and angle. This makes perfect sense when you understand the cartographic conventions of the era. Medieval and Renaissance mapmakers inherited a tradition from classical geography that assumed landmasses must be balanced. If there's a large continent in the north, there must be a corresponding southern continent for symmetry. This wasn't based on exploration, but on aesthetic and philosophical principles. The AI detected that Piri Reis's southern coastline followed these speculative patterns rather than representing genuine geographical knowledge. The mountains and details that seemed so specific. The AI's analysis revealed these were stylistic conventions for indicating unexplored territory rather than mapped features. When the algorithms compared these elements to other contemporary maps, they found identical artistic techniques used to represent unknown regions across dozens of different charts from the same period. Cartographers had a visual vocabulary for saying, "Here be unexplored lands," and Piri Reis was using it conventionally. How this changes history. So if the AI debunked the most sensational theories, why does this matter? Because what the analysis actually revealed is far more valuable than speculative mysteries. We now have unprecedented insight into how geographical knowledge circulated in the Renaissance world, and it's a story of remarkable international information exchange that conventional history often overlooks. The Piri Reis map is proof that knowledge didn't travel in neat, isolated channels, but flowed across cultural and political boundaries through complex networks. The AI's findings demonstrate that Ottoman cartographers weren't just copying European maps. They were synthesizing information from multiple civilizations and creating hybrid works that combined the best elements of different cartographic traditions. This reveals a Renaissance world far more interconnected and intellectually collaborative than we typically imagine. Even as empires fought wars, scholars and navigators were building on each other's discoveries, creating a genuinely global knowledge system. This has implications for how we understand technological and scientific progress. The old narrative of European exceptionalism, driving the age of exploration, gets complicated when you realize that Ottoman, Islamic, and other non-European knowledge systems were crucial components of Renaissance cartographic achievements. The AI's ability to trace these influences with precision gives historians new tools for understanding cross-cultural knowledge transfer and challenging simplistic narratives about who discovered what. Perhaps most importantly, this study demonstrates how AI can revolutionize historical research by removing human bias from analysis. Humans naturally seek patterns that confirm our existing beliefs, but AI can approach evidence with genuine neutrality. This doesn't mean AI replaces historians. The algorithms still require human experts to design appropriate tests, interpret results within historical context, and ask meaningful questions. But it adds a powerful new dimension to historical inquiry.